I'm Audrey Mitchell, 34, and I built my luxury hotel chain from nothing but determination and long hours. My husband Brian never understood my ambition, always keeping me in his shadow. When his brother Jason's wedding invitation arrived for an exclusive venue, I was thrilled until I discovered Brian had canceled my invite behind my back. What he didn't realize: the exclusive venue was Azure Heights Resort, my flagship hotel, the one I own. Before I dive into how this all unfolded, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. If you've ever had a partner undermine you, hit that subscribe button. You'll want to see how this ends. My journey into the hotel industry wasn't planned. After college, I took an internship at a small hotel management company just to pay the bills while figuring out my next move. What started as a temporary position awakened something in me. I loved the intricate dance of hospitality, the challenge of creating perfect experiences for strangers. I worked harder than anyone, staying late to learn every aspect of the business. Within 3 years, I'd moved from intern to front desk manager to assistant general manager. My boss, a veteran in the industry named Harold, saw my potential and became my mentor. "Audrey," he told me once, "you have the eye for detail and the heart for service." That's rare. I saved every penny, living in a tiny studio apartment while my colleagues upgraded their lifestyles with each promotion. By 28, I had enough for a down payment, and when a struggling boutique hotel came on the market, I took the biggest risk of my life. The Lakeside Inn had beautiful bones but terrible management. The bank laughed at my loan application until I presented my detailed 5-year turnaround plan. They stopped laughing when I exceeded those projections in just 2 years. That first success became the foundation of Mitchell Luxury Retreats. I reinvested every profit, acquiring one struggling property after another and transforming them into exclusive destinations. Azure Heights was my third acquisition and most ambitious renovation, a clifftop property with panoramic ocean views that became the jewel in my growing crown. By the time I met Brian, I owned 7 properties across the country, each one a testament to my vision. Brian and I met at a charity gala 5 years ago. He worked in finance, not wildly successful, but comfortable, and had a confidence that drew me in. After years of focusing solely on building my business, I was ready for a personal life. Our whirlwind romance led to marriage within 18 months. From the beginning, I noticed subtle signs of insecurity whenever my career came up. When we met his family for the first time, he introduced me as Audrey. She works in hotel management, deliberately vague. His parents, Harold and Diane Reynolds, came from old money and traditional values. His father ran a small but established investment firm where Brian worked, clearly groomed to take over someday. His mother had never worked, instead chairing charity committees and country club events. Hotel management, his mother had repeated with thinly veiled disapproval. How interesting. I suppose hotels always need someone to manage the staff. I opened my mouth to clarify, but Brian squeezed my hand, a silent plea. Later, he explained, "My family is just old-fashioned. They wouldn't understand someone like you, a woman running her own company. It's just easier this way." Against my better judgment, I agreed to keep the full extent of my success private. I told myself it was temporary, that once they knew me better, Brian would proudly share my accomplishments. Instead, the temporary arrangement calcified into our normal. To his family, I became the wife with the cute little career, who couldn't possibly understand their world of real business. When Brian's younger brother Jason got engaged to Stephanie, an Instagram influencer with expensive taste and a modest following, wedding plans quickly dominated family conversations. Stephanie wanted a dream destination wedding, and nothing would do but the exclusive Azure Heights Resort, my flagship property that had been featured in several luxury travel magazines. It's impossible to get a booking there, Brian had told them during Sunday dinner at his parents' home. They're booked 2 years in advance. But it has to be Azure Heights, Stephanie had insisted, showing everyone the drone footage on her phone. It's perfect for my aesthetic. I sat quietly, fork paused midair as an idea formed. "I might know someone who works there," I offered cautiously. I could ask if they have any cancellations. The look of relief and gratitude on Jason's face almost made up for Stephanie's dismissive, "Well, I suppose having connections with the hotel staff might be useful after all." Little did they know that my connection involved calling my general manager directly and arranging not only the booking, but significant discounts and upgrades. I maintained the charade, pretending to relay messages between the hotel and the family, all while secretly ensuring everything would be perfect. As the wedding approached, tensions grew. Stephanie insisted I attend her bridal fittings and tastings, then ignored my input completely. Brian's mother repeatedly suggested I was too busy with work to be involved in family matters. I kept reminding myself that family relationships were complicated, that building bridges took time. But each dismissive comment and sidelong glance chipped away at my patience. Despite it all, I maintained my professionalism, secretly directing my staff to accommodate every one of Stephanie's increasingly elaborate requests. When she demanded a complete redecoration of the grand ballroom, an impossibility for most clients, I approved it without question. When she wanted the executive chef to create a custom menu beyond the wedding package, I made it happen. All while being treated as an afterthought by the very people whose dream wedding I was quietly orchestrating. 3 months before the wedding, Stephanie invited me to a planning session at an overpriced cafe. I arrived to find her surrounded by her bridesmaids, mood boards scattered across the table. "Audrey, you made it," she said with practiced enthusiasm. "We're discussing the seating chart. Since you know the venue staff, maybe you can tell them we'll need to add 3 tables? My follower count just hit 50,000, and I simply must invite some key influencers." I took a deep breath. "The ballroom has a maximum capacity, Stephanie. Fire codes." "Oh, don't be such a downer," she interrupted. "There's always a way if you know the right people. I'm sure whoever you know there can pull some strings." One of her bridesmaids snickered. "If they can't, maybe they're not as connected as they claim." I bit my tongue, pulling out my phone to text my events director about capacity options. I could reconfigure the space, though it would require additional staffing and safety precautions. As I typed, I overheard Stephanie whispering to her friend. "Brian says she's just a middle manager or something. Probably exaggerating her connections to seem important." The words stung, but I maintained my composure. "The venue can accommodate the additional tables," I said evenly. "I'll make sure they understand the importance of your special day." When I returned home that evening, I found Brian on a video call with Jason in our home office. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my name. "Don't see why Audrey needs to be involved in every decision," Jason was saying. "Stephanie says she's being pushy about the venue details." Brian sighed. I know. She means well, but she doesn't understand how these high-end places work. I've told her to step back. Mom thinks it might be better if she doesn't attend the final venue walkthrough next week," Jason continued. "Just family, you know? Stephanie's already stressed enough without Audrey making suggestions about a place she's never even stayed at." My hand flew to my mouth to stifle my reaction. Never stayed there? I'd personally selected every piece of furniture, every artwork, every linen thread count at Azure Heights. "I'll handle Audrey," Brian assured his brother. "You guys focus on making your day perfect." I retreated to our bedroom, mind racing. Was this why Brian had been so insistent on keeping my business private? To make it easier to exclude me when convenient? The next morning, I was checking emails when I noticed one from Stephanie to Brian, accidentally sent to our shared household account instead of his personal one. The subject line made my blood run cold. Updated guest list. I opened it with trembling fingers. Brian, asterisk. So glad you agree about the guest list adjustment. With the venue costs mounting, cutting a few guests makes sense. Jason, and I appreciate you understanding about Audrey. As I said, nothing personal, but we need the space for my sponsors who will be documenting the day. I'm sure she'll understand it's just business. You can tell her it's a small venue limitation, asterisk. Stephanie, asterisk. I scrolled down to see Brian's original message. I'll talk to Audrey about not attending. You're right that it makes sense given the circumstances. She'll be disappointed, but I'll make it up to her, asterisk. My vision blurred with tears of anger and betrayal. He hadn't even fought for me. Worse, he'd apparently initiated the conversation about removing me from the guest list. When Brian came home that evening, I confronted him immediately, phone in hand. Care to explain this? I asked, showing him the email thread. His face fell, then quickly rearranged into a placating smile. Honey, I was going to talk to you about this. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. I echoed incredulously. You conspired with your brother and his fiancée to uninvite me from a family wedding, and you didn't even have the decency to discuss it with me first. The venue is small, he said, repeating the agreed-upon excuse. They needed to cut the guest list. I thought you'd understand, given how busy you are with work anyway. That's not your decision to make unilaterally, Brian. We're married. Partners. Or at least I thought we were. He had the audacity to look annoyed. You're overreacting. It's just one day. Besides, you don't even like these kinds of family events. That's not the point. The point is you made this decision without me, behind my back, and then planned to feed me some line about venue limitations at a resort with a ballroom that can hold 300 people. How would you know the exact capacity? He snapped. I nearly told him then. Nearly revealed that I didn't just know someone who worked at Azure Heights, I owned it. But the fact that he could do this, could so casually exclude me and expect me to accept it, made me realize we had much bigger problems than one wedding invitation. The following week, Stephanie sent me a series of passive-aggressive texts about wedding details, clearly unaware that Brian hadn't yet broken the news to me about my disinvitation. The florist wants to know about special arrangements for family. Should I include you in the family count, or are you still not sure if you can attend? No pressure either way, asterisk. And later. We've had to make some tough decisions about the guest list due to venue constraints. So many people to accommodate. I'm sure you understand, being a businesswoman and all, asterisk. I didn't respond to any of them, which prompted a call from Brian's mother. Audrey, dear, she began in that syrupy tone that never masked her disapproval. Stephanie is quite stressed about the wedding plans. She mentioned you haven't been responding to her messages? As the groom's brother's wife, we do expect a certain level of participation. I gripped the phone tighter. Interesting. I was under the impression that my participation wasn't needed, given that I've been removed from the guest list. A pause. Oh, Brian mentioned you had a work conflict. Some hotel crisis that weekend? Another lie. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. No crisis. Just a husband who decided I wasn't important enough to attend his brother's wedding. Well, she said stiffly, these misunderstandings happen. Perhaps you and Brian should discuss this further. The venue is quite exclusive, you know. Very limited space. Yes, I said dryly. I'm familiar with Azure Heights. After that call, I was uninvited from all pre-wedding events as well. The engagement dinner, the shower, the rehearsal dinner, all suddenly intimate family gatherings where my presence was deemed unnecessary. Each exclusion was accompanied by a different excuse from Brian, each more transparent than the last. Meanwhile, my staff kept sending me updates about Stephanie's increasingly elaborate requests for her wedding weekend. The customized welcome bags, the specialized lighting design, the imported flowers, all accommodated without question on my private authorization, while I was being systematically erased from the celebration. He did what? My best friend Tara nearly spilled her wine when I finally told her everything. We were sitting in my downtown office, surrounded by architectural plans for my newest property renovation. Uninvited me to his brother's wedding, without even telling me first. I pushed away the resort plans, suddenly not in the mood to look at hotel designs. At your hotel, Tara clarified, incredulous. The one you own. The very same. I poured myself another glass. 5 years of marriage, and he still introduces me as someone who works in hospitality to his family. Like I'm a concierge, not the CEO of a luxury hotel chain. Tara shook her head. Why have you let this go on so long, Audrey? You've built something incredible. You should be proud, not hiding your success to make some insecure man feel better. Her words stung because they contained truth I'd been avoiding. I thought I was being respectful of his relationship with his family. They're very traditional. Traditional is one thing. Treating you like you're beneath them is another. Tara set down her glass. You need to stand up for yourself. Whether that means finally telling them the truth or reevaluating your marriage entirely. Over the next few weeks, Brian became increasingly distant. He spent most evenings at his parents' house for wedding preparations, leaving me alone in our spacious home. One night, while searching for a document in his home office, I found a printed guest list for the wedding. My name had been physically crossed out with black marker. That same night, I checked our shared email again and found correspondence between Brian and his mother discussing my absence. Mom, asterisk. I've told everyone Audrey has an important work commitment that weekend and can't attend. She's disappointed, of course, but understands that her career sometimes requires sacrifices. No need to bring it up with her. She's sensitive about missing family events, asterisk. Brian, asterisk. I sat in stunned silence, reading and rereading his words. Not only had he uninvited me, but he created an entire false narrative about it being my choice due to work. He'd made me the villain in his story, the career-obsessed wife too busy for family. The next morning, I confronted him. You told your family I'm missing the wedding because of work. I asked as he hurriedly packed his briefcase. He froze momentarily, then continued gathering papers. I thought it would be easier that way. No hurt feelings. No hurt feelings. I repeated. You're publicly humiliating me, making me look like I don't care about your family, and you think that spares my feelings. Audrey, you're blowing this out of proportion. His tone was dismissive. My family thinks you care more about your career than being a supportive wife. I was trying to protect your image by reinforcing exactly what they already think. I was nearly shouting now. When have I ever chosen work over your family? I've attended every holiday, every birthday, every dinner, even when they've been dismissive and condescending. Maybe if you weren't so secretive about your work. I'm secretive because you asked me to be. I countered. You're the one who didn't want them to know I own my company. You're the one who keeps introducing me as having some vague job in hospitality. I played along because I thought it was temporary, that eventually you'd be proud of what I've built. His expression darkened. It's always about your success, isn't it? Your company, your achievements. Do you have any idea how that makes me look? My wife out-earning me tenfold while I'm still trying to prove myself at my father's company. And there it was, the truth I'd suspected but never heard spoken aloud. My success threatened him. My achievements made him feel inadequate. And rather than work through his insecurities, he'd chosen to diminish me. The argument ended with Brian grabbing his bags and announcing he'd be staying at his parents' house until the wedding. To help with preparations, he claimed, but we both knew he was running from our unresolved conflict. As the wedding week arrived, my stress doubled. Not only was my marriage in crisis, but my flagship property was preparing to host the most demanding bride we'd had all year, a bride who had no idea she was terrorizing her future sister-in-law's staff. My hotel manager, Sophia, called me daily with updates and challenges. Ms. Mitchell, the bride is now requesting we completely replace the chandelier in the main ballroom. She says it doesn't match her aesthetic. We've explained it's a custom piece that cannot be removed, but she's insisting. What did you tell her? I asked, rubbing my temples. That we'd consult with the owner. Sophia paused. MS. Mitchell, forgive me for asking, but aren't you related to this wedding party? The groom's last name is Reynolds, like your husband. Yes, I said quietly. The groom is my brother-in-law. But they don't know I own the hotel chain. As far as they're concerned, I'm just someone who works in hospitality. I see. Her tone conveyed perfect professional courtesy, but I could hear the question behind it. And would you like us to maintain that impression during the event? I considered the question carefully. For now, yes. Continue as normal. I'll handle any major issues personally if needed. After hanging up, I received a text from Brian. Stephanie said your hotel contact is being difficult about the chandelier. Please don't make problems just because you're upset about the guest list. This is Jason's big day, asterisk. I stared at the message in disbelief. Not only was I accommodating their every unreasonable demand, but I was now being accused of sabotage for enforcing basic structural limitations. I didn't respond. That night, alone in our house that suddenly felt too large and too empty, I realized I had a decision to make. I could continue the charade, diminishing myself to protect Brian's ego, or I could finally stand up for myself and the company I'd built. The day before the wedding, I was in my downtown office reviewing quarterly projections when my phone lit up with a security alert from Azure Heights. As owner, I had access to the security system and could remotely view camera feeds, something I rarely did unless there was an incident. The alert had been triggered by raised voices in the bridal preparation suite. I activated the feed to see Stephanie, face flushed with anger, berating my wedding coordinator, Jessica. "This is completely unacceptable," Stephanie was saying, gesturing wildly at the room around her. "I specifically requested rose gold accents, and these are clearly champagne. Who's in charge here? Because someone needs to be fired." Jessica, a consummate professional with over a decade of experience, maintained her composure. "Ms. Carlton, I apologize for the confusion. Our notes show you approved the champagne color scheme last month. However, we can certainly make adjustments." "Adjustments?" Stephanie interrupted. "The wedding is tomorrow. I've been planning this for a year. Where's the manager?" "No, not the manager, the owner. I want to speak to whoever owns this place." I watched, stomach clenching, as my staff tried to defuse the situation. Then I noticed Brian entering the frame, putting his arm around Stephanie. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your sister-in-law's so-called connection at this hotel is useless," Stephanie spat. "Everything is wrong. The colors, the flowers, even the chair covers aren't what I asked for." I checked our event system remotely. Every detail matched exactly what had been approved in writing by Stephanie herself. She had changed her mind again, without informing anyone. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," Brian soothed. "Audrey probably miscommunicated your requirements to her contact." My blood boiled. Not only was I being blamed for Stephanie's last-minute changes, but Brian was throwing me under the bus to placate his future sister-in-law. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Brian. "Stephanie is extremely upset about the wedding preparations. Your hotel contact has messed up several details. Please fix this immediately. And don't cause any more problems. You've done enough damage already by being difficult about your invitation. Asterisk." I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me as I finally accepted what I'd been denying for too long. Brian valued his family's approval more than our marriage. More than me. And he would always choose them, even if it meant making me the scapegoat for problems I hadn't created. Tears slid down my cheeks as memories flooded back, Brian minimizing my promotion to COO of my own company as a little career advancement, Brian suggesting I not bore his father with business talk at Christmas dinner. Brian discouraging me from attending a hospitality industry award ceremony where I was being honored because it conflicted with his mother's garden club event. Pattern after pattern of subtle diminishment, all because he couldn't handle being married to a successful woman. I called Tara, my voice shaking. "I think my marriage might be over." "What happened?" she asked, concern evident. I explained the situation with the wedding, the accusations, the years of hiding my success to protect Brian's ego. "Oh, Audrey," Tara sighed. "I'm so sorry. But maybe this is the wake-up call you needed. You've been dimming your light for far too long." "I know," I whispered. "I just never thought it would come to this." "What are you going to do about the wedding tomorrow?" I thought for a long moment. "I'm going to attend. Not as Brian's wife, not as Jason's sister-in-law, but as Audrey Mitchell, owner of Mitchell Luxury Retreats and Azure Heights Resort." "It's about time," Tara said approvingly. "What about Brian?" "That depends on him," I said quietly. "On whether he can accept me, all of me, or not." After hanging up, I called my attorney to discuss various scenarios and legal implications. Then I made arrangements with my hotel staff for the following day. If I was going to reveal my identity, I wanted to do it on my own terms. That night, I hardly slept, rehearsing what I would say, how I would handle the inevitable fallout. By morning, I felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened, I would no longer be hiding who I was or what I had built. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and perfect, exactly the kind of day Azure Heights was famous for, with sunlight sparkling off the ocean visible from every window of the resort. I dressed with particular care in a tailored navy blue dress, subtle but unmistakably high-end, and pearls that had been my grandmother's. Professional, polished, powerful. I drove myself to Azure Heights, using my private entrance and heading straight to my office overlooking the main lobby. Through the one-way glass, I could see the wedding guests beginning to arrive, the Reynolds family greeting people with practiced charm. Sophia knocked and entered, surprise registering on her face at my presence. "Miss Mitchell, we weren't expecting you today." "Change of plans," I said calmly. "I'll be attending the wedding after all." "As?" She left the question hanging. "As myself, the owner." I stood, smoothing my dress. It's time to end this charade. I timed my entrance perfectly, stepping into the pre-ceremony reception just as Brian's parents were welcoming an important business associate. Brian stood nearby, scanning the room nervously, looking for fires to put out, no doubt. The moment he saw me, his expression morphed from surprise to anger. He excused himself from the group he was with and strode over, gripping my elbow tightly. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. "I told you not to come." We agreed. "No, Brian," I corrected him, keeping my voice level. "You decided." "I never agreed to anything." "This is Jason's wedding day," he said through clenched teeth. "Don't make a scene." "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here because despite everything, Jason is family, and I wanted to wish him well." I extracted my arm from his grip. "Now if you'll excuse me, I should check on a few things." "What things?" Brian's confusion was evident. "You don't work here." Before I could respond, Stephanie appeared in a flurry of white tulle and panic. "The string quartet is setting up in the wrong location," she cried, spotting Brian. Then her eyes landed on me, narrowing instantly. "What is ST doing here?" "I thought we agreed." "Actually, I can help with the quartet," I interrupted smoothly, turning to a passing staff member. "Miguel, please inform the musicians that they should set up at the East Pergola, not the West Terrace." Miguel's eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Yes, Miss Mitchell. Right away." Stephanie looked between Miguel and me, confusion replacing anger. "You work here?" In a manner of speaking, I replied. Just then, the general manager approached, tablet in hand. "Ms. Mitchell, we have a small situation with the kitchen timing. Chef Morales would like your input." Brian stared at me. "Ms. Mitchell? They know you here." I took a deep breath. This was it. "Yes, Brian. They know me quite well." I turned to face him fully. "I don't just have connections at Azure Heights. I own it, along with the other 6 properties in the Mitchell Luxury Retreats portfolio." The silence that followed was deafening. Brian's face went slack with shock. Stephanie's mouth actually fell open. Around us, a small circle of guests had gone quiet, sensing drama. That's not possible," Brian finally stammered. "You work in hotel management. You've always said—" "No, Brian," I corrected him gently but firmly. "You've always said that. I simply stopped correcting you after the first few times when it became clear you preferred your family to think I had a modest career." Stephanie had recovered enough to sputter, but all the arrangements, the discounts we received, were courtesy of me, I confirmed. "You're in MY Hotel. The one I built from nothing while you were telling everyone I was just a manager." By now, Brian's parents had noticed the commotion and approached. His father's expression darkened when he saw me. "Brian, I thought you said Audrey couldn't attend due to work," he said, eyeing me with disapproval. "Apparently," Brian said, his voice tight, "her work is right here." "What's that supposed to mean?" his mother asked. "It means," I said clearly, "that I own Azure Heights and the entire Mitchell Luxury Retreats chain. I'm not just an employee, I'm the founder and CEO." Harold Reynolds looked as though I'd slapped him. "That's absurd. Brian would have told us if his wife owned." "Would he?" I asked softly. "When he's spent 5 years downplaying my career to make himself look better." Brian's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "This isn't the time or place, Audrey." "I agree," I said. "This conversation is long overdue, but your brother's wedding isn't the venue for it." I turned to Stephanie, whose mascara was now threatening to run. "Your wedding will proceed exactly as planned. Every detail you requested, that was actually communicated to us has been executed perfectly. My staff is the best in the business, and they will ensure your day is flawless. Why didn't you say something? She asked, genuine confusion in her voice. All this time, would it have made a difference? I asked. Would you have treated me with more respect if you'd known I wasn't just Brian's wife who works in hospitality, but the owner of the venue you so desperately wanted? Her silence was answer enough. Jason had joined us now, looking between his brother and me with growing concern. What's going on? The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. A slight misunderstanding, I said diplomatically. Nothing that will affect your special day. Audrey owns the hotel, Brian said flatly. All this time, she's been pretending to just work here, when she actually owns the entire chain. Jason blinked rapidly. The whole chain? But that's a multi-million-dollar company. Indeed it is, I said, unable to keep a hint of pride from my voice. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I should let you finish your preparations. The ceremony site is ready whenever you are. As I turned to leave, Brian grabbed my wrist. We're not done talking about this. I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. I'm a professional. Unlike some people here, I don't let personal feelings interfere with commitments. We can discuss this after your brother's wedding. With that, I walked away, back straight, head high, feeling lighter than I had in years. The truth was finally out. Throughout the ceremony, I sat quietly in the back, watching as Jason and Stephanie exchanged vows under the perfectly positioned pergola, with the ocean as their backdrop. My staff performed flawlessly, anticipating every need, creating the magic that Azure Heights was known for. At the reception, Brian made several attempts to speak with me, all of which I politely deflected. Later, I told him each time, "This is Jason and Stephanie's day." Several guests who knew Brian's family approached me, curious about the whispers that were now circulating. I answered their questions honestly but discreetly, neither hiding my accomplishments nor flaunting them. Stephanie's parents, who had previously barely acknowledged my existence, suddenly found me fascinating. "We had no idea," her mother gushed. "A businesswoman of your caliber, you must tell us how you built your company." "Perhaps another time," I said politely. Today is about the bride and groom. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from Tara. "How's it going? Has Brian's head exploded yet? Asterisk. Are his parents kissing your feet now that they know you're loaded? Asterisk. Do you need backup? I can be there in 30 with champagne and a getaway car. Asterisk." Her support made me smile, providing much-needed levity throughout the tense event. During the speeches, Brian surprised me by taking the microphone after the standard best man toast. He looked directly at me as he spoke. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone who made today possible in ways most of you don't realize," he said, his voice unsteady. "My wife, Audrey. Many of you just learned today what I've known for years, that she is an extraordinary businesswoman who built the very resort we're enjoying from the ground up." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I haven't always been," he paused, struggling for words, "as supportive or as proud as I should have been. That was my failing, not hers. Audrey, I owe you an apology, publicly and privately." "I'm sorry." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I nodded once, acknowledging his words without fully accepting them. It was a start, but one public apology couldn't erase years of diminishment. Later, as the reception wound down, Brian found me in my private office overlooking the ballroom. "Can we talk?" he asked, closing the door behind him. "Yes," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "I think it's time we do." "So this is your office," Brian said, looking around at the elegant space with its panoramic views. "I've never seen it before." "There are a lot of things about me you've never seen," I replied quietly. "Or chosen not to see." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "Audrey, I know I messed up. The uninvite, the lies, all of it. But you lied too. You've been hiding this." He gestured around the office from me, from everyone. "I never lied about owning my company," I corrected him. "I simply stopped correcting your mischaracterizations after it became clear you preferred your family to think I had a modest career. There's a difference between privacy and deception, Brian." "But why go along with it for so long?" You built something incredible here. Why hide it? I considered my answer carefully. At first, it was because you asked me to. You said your family was old-fashioned, that they wouldn't understand a woman running her own company. I thought it was temporary, that once they knew me better, you'd proudly share my accomplishments. And later, he pressed. Later, it became clear that the problem wasn't your family's traditional values. It was your insecurity. I met his eyes directly. You couldn't handle being married to a woman who out-earned you, who built something significant on her own. So rather than address that insecurity, you chose to diminish me instead. Brian flinched as though I'd struck him. That's not fair, isn't it? You've introduced me as working in hospitality for 5 years. You've discouraged me from discussing my business at family gatherings. You suggested I skip an award ceremony where I was being honored because it conflicted with your mother's garden club event. I didn't realize. You didn't want to realize, I interrupted. It was easier to keep me small than to confront your own issues. A long silence stretched between us. Outside, the sounds of the wedding reception continued, music, laughter, celebration. You're right, he finally said, his voice barely audible. I was threatened by your success. Watching you build this empire while I'm still trying to prove myself at my father's company, it made me feel inadequate. But that's my problem, not yours. I should have been lifting you up, not tearing you down. It was the most honest he'd been in years, and despite everything, I felt a flicker of hope. Yes, you should have. What happens now, he asked, and I could hear the fear in his voice. Fear that he'd damaged our relationship beyond repair. I don't know, I answered truthfully. What I do know is that I won't hide who I am or what I've built anymore. Not for you, not for your family, not for anyone. I wouldn't ask you to, he said quickly. I'm proud of you, Audrey. I should have said that years ago, and I should have shown it. I want to do better. Words are easy, Brian. Change is hard. I know. But I want to try. He reached across the desk, not quite touching my hand. Will you give us that chance? I looked at him, the man I'd fallen in love with and chosen to build a life with. Despite everything, part of me still cared deeply for him. But I also knew that real change would require more than just good intentions. I'll need time, I said finally. And space. And I need to see actual effort, not just promises. Relief washed over his face. Anything. Whatever you need. For starters, I'm going to Santorini next week. Alone. We owned a small boutique property there that needed my attention, and I needed the distance to think clearly. 2 weeks of complete separation. No calls, no texts. He nodded, though I could see it wasn't what he wanted to hear. And after that, if you're serious about working on our relationship, we find a good marriage counselor and address the real issues. Your insecurities, my willingness to make myself smaller for your comfort, all of it. I'll do it, he said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. As we stood to return to the reception, a knock came at the door. It was Jessica, my wedding coordinator. Excuse me, Miss Mitchell. The bride and groom are preparing for their departure. They asked if you'd join the farewell line. I glanced at Brian, who nodded encouragingly. We'll be right there. When we returned to the ballroom, something had shifted. The Reynolds family, now aware of my true position, regarded me with new eyes. Some with newfound respect, others with obvious discomfort at having misjudged me so thoroughly. Stephanie, glowing in her reception dress, pulled me aside before getting into the vintage Rolls-Royce I'd arranged as their getaway car. Audrey, I don't know what to say, she began, her expression genuinely contrite. All this time, you were accommodating my every request, and I was, well, horrible to you. It's my job to create perfect experiences, I said simply. No, it's more than that. You could have sabotaged everything when you found out you weren't invited. Instead, you made sure everything was flawless. She squeezed my hand. Thank you. And, I'm sorry. Her apology surprised me with its sincerity. Enjoy your honeymoon. The staff at our Maui property is expecting you. Her eyes widened. You own that one too. I smiled. The Mitchell & Mitchell Luxury Retreats isn't a coincidence. As the newlyweds drove away amid a shower of rose petals, I felt a strange sense of closure. The day that had begun with such tension had transformed into something unexpected, a first step toward honesty, not just with Brian's family, but with myself. Back at home that night, Brian and I moved carefully around each other, the weight of unresolved issues still heavy between us. But for the first time in years, there were no pretenses, no carefully maintained facades. I meant what I said, he told me as we prepared for bed. I want to fix this. Fix us. I want that too, I admitted. But it won't be easy. We have a lot to work through. I know. He hesitated, then asked, will you tell me about Santorini? Your property there. It was a small gesture, but significant, his first genuine interest in my business in years. So I told him about the cliffside boutique hotel with its infinity pools and spectacular sunsets, the renovation challenges and the staff I'd assembled. He listened intently, asking questions, engaging with this part of my life he'd previously chosen to ignore. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. The Santorini sky was painted in strokes of pink and gold as I sat on the private terrace of my suite at Helios Haven, the smallest but most exclusive property in my portfolio. Below, the caldera stretched out in a breathtaking panorama, the Aegean Sea glittering in the late afternoon light. 2 weeks away from Brian, from the revelations of the wedding, had given me the perspective I desperately needed. Here, surrounded by beauty I'd helped create, I could finally see our relationship clearly, both its flaws and its potential for healing. Each day, I divided my time between overseeing property improvements and personal reflection. I hiked the ancient trails, swam in the crystal waters, and sat for hours watching the famous Santorini sunset, letting the island's timeless rhythm restore my sense of self. Though I'd asked for no contact, Brian had sent one thing, a handwritten letter delivered on my third day. Audrey, asterisk. I respect your need for space, so I won't call or text as promised. But I wanted you to know that I've started therapy to address my insecurities. I should have done this years ago instead of projecting my issues onto you and our marriage, asterisk. I've also told my family the full truth, not just about your business success, but about how I've consistently diminished you to protect my ego. My father called me a fool, and he's right, asterisk. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you return, ready to do the work to rebuild what I've damaged, if you'll give me that chance, asterisk. All my love, asterisk. Brian, asterisk. I'd read the letter multiple times, searching for the familiar patterns of manipulation or empty promises. Instead, I found something new, accountability. Whether it would last remained to be seen, but it was a start. On my return to the States, Brian met me at the airport with a simple bouquet of wildflowers, not the elaborate arrangements he'd often used to apologize in the past, but something thoughtful and understated. Welcome home, he said, not trying to hug or kiss me, respecting the boundaries I'd established. How is Santorini? Beautiful. Productive. I accepted the flowers with a small smile. Thank you for these. In the car, he didn't press me for decisions or declarations. Instead, he updated me on practical matters. He'd moved temporarily into the guest room to give me space, and he'd scheduled an appointment with a marriage counselor if I wanted to attend. Dr. Reynolds came highly recommended for couples dealing with career imbalances and communication issues, he explained. But if you'd prefer someone else, or if you're not ready yet, I understand. His consideration surprised me. The old Brian would have made assumptions, pushed for immediate reconciliation, used grand gestures to paper over deeper issues. Our first counseling session was uncomfortable but necessary. Dr. Reynolds, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense approach, created a space where we could speak honestly about years of accumulated resentments and misunderstandings. Brian, why did you feel threatened by Audrey's success? She asked directly. He fidgeted with his wedding ring. My father built his business from nothing. He's always expected me to do the same, but I've never had his drive or vision. I'm competent, but not exceptional. He glanced at me. Then I married Audrey, who built an empire seemingly effortlessly. Every achievement of hers highlighted what I perceived as my own mediocrity. So you diminished her to feel better about yourself? Yes, he admitted. It's awful saying it out loud, but yes. Dr. Reynolds turned to me. And Audrey, why did you allow your accomplishments to be minimized for so long? The question stung with its accuracy. I told myself it was temporary, that I was being supportive. But truthfully, I took a deep breath. I was afraid. Afraid that if I insisted on being fully seen, I might lose my marriage. So I compartmentalized business owner by day, small version of myself with his family by night. Week by week, session by session, we untangled years of unhealthy patterns. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and arguments, moments when reconciliation seemed impossible. But there was also growth, Brian's genuine efforts to change, my willingness to be vulnerable about my own contributions to our problems. A month after my return, Brian arranged a dinner with his parents. I was wary, expecting the old dynamics to reassert themselves. Before we begin, Brian said once we were all seated, I want to properly introduce you to my wife. He turned to me with clear pride in his eyes. This is Audrey Mitchell, founder and CEO of Mitchell Luxury Retreats, one of the most successful boutique hotel chains in the country. She's brilliant, determined, and I'm incredibly fortunate that she chose to marry me. His mother blinked rapidly. His father studied me with new interest. I believe we owe you an apology, Audrey, Harold said finally. We've not given you the respect you deserve, professionally or personally. We were raised with certain expectations about roles, Diane added carefully. But that's no excuse for how we've treated you. It wasn't an instant transformation. Old habits and biases don't disappear overnight. But it was a beginning, a crack in the facade of the Reynolds family dynamics that had contributed to our marital problems. After dinner, Brian took my hand as we walked to the car. Thank you for coming tonight. I know it wasn't easy. It wasn't, I agreed. But it was necessary. He hesitated, then asked, Are we going to be okay, Audrey? I considered the question seriously. I think we can be, if we both keep doing the work. The real test came 2 weeks later when Stephanie and Jason returned from their honeymoon. They'd invited us to dinner to share photos and, I suspected, to navigate our new reality. Stephanie approached me immediately, holding out a beautifully wrapped package. A thank you gift, she said, though it can't possibly express our gratitude. Inside was a stunning hand-blown glass sculpture of Azure Heights, meticulously detailed. Jason and I had it commissioned, she explained, to commemorate not just our wedding, but your incredible achievement in creating such a beautiful space. It's exquisite, I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. Over dinner, something remarkable happened. Instead of dominating the conversation with honeymoon stories, Stephanie asked thoughtful questions about my business journey. Jason, who'd always followed his brother's lead in our interactions, engaged with me directly about future expansion plans. We've been thinking, Jason said, glancing at Stephanie for confirmation, we'd like to invest in your next property, if you're open to outside capital. We believe in what you're building. Brian, rather than showing jealousy at his brother's interest in my business, nodded encouragingly. They'd be lucky to get in on the ground floor of your next success. It was a small moment, but significant, my husband supporting my ambitions without insecurity clouding his response. 6 months after the wedding that had catalyzed so much change, I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our newest property, a restored historical mansion in New Orleans. Brian stood beside me, genuinely proud as I addressed the gathered press and industry leaders. Our marriage wasn't perfect. We still had difficult moments, times when old insecurities threatened to resurface. The work of rebuilding trust was ongoing, requiring consistent effort from both of us. But something fundamental had shifted. I no longer dimmed my light to make others comfortable. Brian no longer felt threatened by my success. We were learning, slowly but surely, to be true partners, supporting each other's dreams rather than competing or comparing. In my office that evening, after the celebration had ended, I looked out over the French Quarter and reflected on the journey that had brought us here. From the humiliation of being uninvited to a wedding at my own hotel to the painful but necessary truth-telling that followed, every step had led to this moment of hard-won peace. The most valuable lesson wasn't about business success or family acceptance. It was simpler and more profound, True partnership requires complete honesty with your partner and with yourself. You cannot build a lasting relationship on a foundation of half-truths and diminished selves. Sometimes the most valuable room upgrade isn't about the view or the amenities. It's about having the space to be fully yourself, appreciated for all that you are. Have you ever hidden part of yourself to make someone else comfortable? Or have you had to stand up for your worth in a relationship? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of strong individuals who refuse to be sidelined in their own lives. Thank you for watching, and remember, never let anyone cancel your invitation to your own success story.